What's up, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Wizards Latest. I'm your host and DC sports fan, Ben Robertson, and on this page, we break down all the biggest headlines surrounding the Washington Wizards. So today, I want to talk about the NBA draft. I'll break down what I think separates the two first-round selections and why I really think they have the chance to be special players. I'll talk about the second-round pick, why I was initially a little bit confused, but after further review, understand it because it fits the identity that this front office is trying to build. And on that note, what has Will Dawkins done in just a couple short years to set up such a bright future here in DC? So as always, drop any comments down below with thoughts you might have on the video. You can also hit me up over on Twitter at BenRobertson32 with thoughts or future video ideas. Like and subscribe to Wizards Latest, and let's jump right in. So, of course, in the first round a couple nights ago, Trey Johnson and Will Riley were selected. Last night, Jir Watkins went number 43 overall in the second round for the Wizards. So let's talk about the two first-round picks first. First, let's discuss Trey Johnson. Obviously, I was initially just a little bit disappointed that Ace Bailey went 5th overall to the Jazz, but that disappointment pretty quickly shaken off with the selection of Trey Johnson out of Texas. And the more I just kind of learn about Trey and study him and hear him talk, really, the more I think his mentality is what is going to separate him and set him apart in the NBA. Every time I hear him, he is just so locked in on basketball, it seems. I mentioned the quote yesterday where he said, "I really don't have a life outside of the sport of basketball. This is what I do. I've sacrificed a ton to get to where I am today, and maybe not had the life of a typical teenage kid because I've pushed those things aside to, put basketball first." And again, you just love to hear that. And everybody that talks about him talks about his work ethic and his just motivation to get better. His high school coach was on DC Sports Radio a little bit today and talked about how he treated his freshman year at Texas as a rookie year in the NBA. So once he gets to this stage, he's ready for it. Both Trey Johnson and Will Dawkins talked about post-draft. Will Dawkins showed Trey in his workout and visit with the Wizards. He showed him defensive errors he made and defensive lapses he made in his time at Texas. And Trey was frustrated by it, and it really motivated him. It was something he really wants to work on. It was also both Dawkins and Trey Johnson talking about potentially him working as a playmaker in the offense and not just his scoring ability, which we know is what is going to make him great and what he does best, but both of them talking about things that he can do to improve his game and set himself apart, because we know it's not just about scoring in the NBA. And all of these factors and all of this, stuff that plays into his mindset is really what I think is going to make him a great player in the NBA. And we've seen it be such a difference maker for so many legends in the past. Now, again, sticking on that same idea of just work ethic, Will Dawkins said with Will Riley, as soon as he steps into the practice facility, he is going to push people. Even if it's not him being the best player on the court immediately, his just attack for the day, an attack for practice, every single time he's out there is going to have an effect on his teammates in the gym. A lot of people maybe didn't have Will Riley on their radar, myself included to some extent, and he was a guy that came off the bench at Illinois, which is a turnoff for some in the draft. Oh, you're not good enough to start in college. How are you going to translate to the NBA? But if you listen to the Illinois head coach, Brad Underwood, he said, hey, that's just something I like to do, bring great talent off my bench and use a player like Will Riley as my sixth man. He said he was a top 2 talent in the program. Obviously, Kasparas Giacochonis and Riley went back-to-back in this year's draft, 20 and 21st overall. And by coming off the bench, Riley was able to do different things. He was able to lead the offense and handle the ball a lot, especially down the stretch of the year, and kind of learn how to be a potential matchup nightmare in the NBA using his size against smaller players. But then when you match him up with the bigger guy, his ball handling ability makes him a really difficult player to guard. Again, just like with Trey Johnson, both of these players are going to be challenged defensively as soon as they step into the building with the Wizards, and right away in Summer League. This team wants to test these young guys and wants to build them on that end of the court as well, which sort of leads me to the second round pick. I was initially slightly confused by the selection of Jir Watkins, number 43 overall. He spent 2 years at VCU. Shout out any Rams fans or maybe Wizards fans down in Richmond, and then 2 years at Florida State, where he became a regular starter, averaged about 18.5 points per game this past year, his last year there. And again, while I was initially it's just another wing that we add. Obviously, we're sort of stock full of wings and big guards right now on the roster. But after further review, again, it fits the mold of player that this front office has stated they're looking for. Big wings that are versatile and can switch any position 1 through 5 on defense. And that is what the NBA is sort of all about right now. You need that defensive versatility with the shooting ability and the spacing of the floor that so many of these teams have. That ability for players to, guard 1 through 5 is so important right now, or at the very least 1 through 4. So again, after initial confusion, Maxime Reynaud went 1 pick before, who a lot of people had their eyes on, the big Frenchman out of Stanford, went 1 pick before Watkins. I kind of thought about it, and it sort of made sense to me. And again, I think this is part of the identity and part of the culture that Will Dawkins and co., I've talked about it now a bunch here in this video, is really trying to build moving forward and in the future with this team. Again, big guards and wings that can switch on any matchup and play out on just all of the talent that plays on the perimeter right now in the NBA. And in this draft, they found 2 players that fit that mold and fit that skill set. And then they've also found a potentially really elite scorer at the top of the draft or near the top of the draft in Trey Johnson. So we could look back on this, class and go, wow, those were 3 really, really solid picks. So kind of to my last talking point of the day, I'm not going to say that the Wizards are going to, go from an 18-win team to, winning a ton of games in this upcoming season. It might not even be in their best interest to do so. If we fall out of the top 8 in the upcoming NBA draft, we lose our first round selection entirely. But I will say we're going to have so much better of an understanding of where this roster and where these young guys are at after the upcoming season. And honestly, I think that's going to start right away really in Summer League. We're going to have potentially one of the most stacked Summer League rosters there is. And I think we're going to kind of just understand what these players, are and who they are as NBA talents and what kind of they're going to be in their careers so much better after this year. And again, we've talked to Will Dawkins so much in this video, but what he's done in just a couple of years as a GM is he's put us in a position where we have this stockpile of young players. We're starting to stockpile assets and picks and things of that nature. And then in the next offseason, there's $100 million roughly awaiting of available cap space. So this team is just in such a good spot moving forward. It's why even if I sometimes, question a decision here or there, maybe and confused by it, I have so much trust and faith in Will Dawkins and Michael Winger, and will continue singing their praises. So remember, we're trying to grow and build here on this page, just like the Wizards are. Drop your comments below, like and subscribe to the page. You can also hit me over on Twitter at Ben Robertson 32. I might hit you back. Drop your thoughts there. Hit me with any future video ideas. And as always, thank you for watching Wizards Latest.